Welcome back to Faith, Frauds, and Falsehoods, where we talk about various cults and religions of the world. Tonight, we're continuing our discussion on the Institute and Basic Life Principles, the IBLP. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help other people find us.
Before we begin, let's make it very clear the opinions that we present are ours alone. They do not represent the views or opinions of our respective churches or employers. Hey, Brian, let's get started.
Yeah. So we're talking about the 7 life principles that every person must build their life around in order to be successful.
Well, listen, he's already made, inroads in the perfect scriptural sermon there. He's used the number 7.
Right.
That's the astrological term of the Greek god Aries or something. I mean, no, sorry. The number of completion, whatever we're going to make up that's extra biblical here. The 7 principles. So there's 7.
I can't see you, so
7.
There you go, 7. Yep.
Principles.
Yep.
So tell us about these 7 principles.
So, following the influence of the gurus, right? Gothard produced this 7 list of principles so that it's easy for people to follow, right?
Wait, should I get it tattooed on my arm?
You can if you want.
Is that against his teachings? I'm not sure. I don't know if he's pro-tattoo.
It's probably anti-tattoo, if I had to guess. Just based on the other things that we've read about him.
Well, we'll do it as a tramp stamp, and then he won't have to see it.
Oh, gosh. We're getting tired and a little delirious here. So the first one...
We're not even having whiskey tonight.
Nope. The first one is design. So understanding the specific purposes for which God created each person, object, and relationship in my life and living in harmony with them. Thanking God for my design brings self-acceptance.
Okay, so that goes into the umbrella we talked about where you fit in the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Well, no.
Where God put them, that person, object, and relationship in the life?
I think that's the next one. More, I think this is focused more on.
I think it's all of them, actually.
Right? Yeah, they all kind of have to point everyone back to him. I think this was intended to be more accepting yourself for who you are.
Okay.
Right.
Where you fit.
Sure.
All right.
Authority. Honoring the responsibilities of parents, church leaders, government, and other authorities, and learning how God works through them to provide direction and protection. Honoring my authorities brings inward peace.
Okay.
So this is definitely a very overt, fall in line, get on the ladder where you belong kind of teaching. Responsibility. Realizing that I am accountable to God for every thought, word, action, and motive. Asking forgiveness of those I offend brings a clear conscience. Suffering. Allowing the hurts from offenders to reveal blind spots in my own life and then seeing how I can benefit their lives. Fully forgiving offenders brings genuine joy. Ownership. Understanding that everything I have has been entrusted to me by God and wisely using it for his purposes. Yielding my rights to God brings true security. Freedom. Enjoying the desire and power to do what is right rather than claiming the privilege to do what I want. Regaining ground surrendered to sin brings moral purity. Back to that fundamentalist holiness section. And success. Discovering God's purpose for my life by engrafting scripture in my heart and mind and using it to think God's thoughts, scare quotes, and make wise decisions. Meditating on scriptures brings life purpose.
Okay. And a lot of these sound like good things. I think they definitely do point to the guruism thing. Hey, here's your 7 things that you can do. But I think that's what people are looking for. And that's really what he was offering.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely what he was doing. Yeah.
And this is how he acquired a lot of new followers. Hey, look, he's got a plan for success here.
Yep. That's what we need to do, Matt. We need to just figure out a step-by-step path and we'll just go with it, right? No?
I found a pretty good path. If you want me to tell you about it.
That's true. We'll talk about that in the response.
All right.
No, so again, coming back to, we'll talk about more stuff in the response, but gotta point out success. Thinking God's thoughts is incomprehensible for us as humans.
Well,
God's ways are not our ways.
I see that. I was taught very much about, I don't know about meditating on scripture, but scripture memorization and studying of scripture.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely scripture memorization. We're supposed to be able to always call to account for our beliefs. And by memorizing scripture, we can do that. And honestly, you and I talk about things and we both pull out scripture about this and that stuff, right? Because you were taught the same thing, that you need to be able to memorize scripture. And, you know, how many times you've been in a class when it's been over a certain scripture, and so you remember that scripture next time you talk about that subject. I think this pulls it a little further, but the basics of it, I think, is not all that off. And the whole thinking God's thoughts, again, it's how far do you take that? I will say this. I know that in my own life, again, we're probably more to the response thing here, but I just got to mention it while we're here. I know in my own life that the more of scripture that I know, the easier it is for me to make scriptural based decisions.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for
about
sure.
Things. And that's how I was taught that concept. I was actually taught quite a few of these concepts, not exactly the same way though, and not in this Gothard thing, but it might have come from this. Mm-hmm. The one that gets me is the freedom one. Enjoying the desire and power to do what is right rather than claiming the privilege to do what I want. Regaining ground surrender to sin brings moral purity. That kind of goes around my definition of freedom there. Mm-hmm. But I do see where he's coming from, because Paul discussed such a thing as well. We have the freedom to do lots of things.
Right.
That does not mean that's what is the right thing to do.
Yep.
And it doesn't necessarily mean it's the sinful, non-sinful thing. That's not always the question. We have to account for others and things in our freedom. Mm-hmm. Freedom is not always, even our government in the United States, we have this government. We don't have a true democracy. We have a republic democracy.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. There's some limits to that. I'm very much a pro-freedom person. I'm not an anarchy person, but very much pro-freedom. And not just in my government, but in my religion and lots of things. You have the right to follow God or not follow God, even if I think you're wrong. So it bothers me when you use the word freedom when we're actually talking about it's not exactly freedom there.
Right.
So I see where people have some problems with that, but I do see his point, and Paul made a very similar point, in that we have the freedom to do things, but that doesn't mean that's the wise thing to do.
Right. Yep.
So, well, those are the 7 principles. What else you got on that? I see you got one more point on here that I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah. One of the things that he said in one of the basic seminar videos was that these are so difficult to accept and follow because they're mostly in opposition to mankind's natural inclinations. Which, you know, is mostly true.
We keep using that word mostly with this.
Well, because so much of his stuff, there are nuggets of truth here, right?
That did come from the Bible.
Right. All truth is God's truth, right? But there are pieces that are not truth. And so you have to weigh that and say, because you can't throw the whole thing out because some of it is absolutely true.
Yeah.
You know? But most of this is relatively good.
Okay. So next we're going to talk about the social issues. That'll be next week, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, y'all. We will see y'all then.